fireflies and their habitats across the United States. He's a recognized public speaker, field researcher, and science educator whose work focuses on Texas and North America firefly species. Ben's research centers on documenting firefly diversity, natural history, habitat requirements, and flash patterns, much of which has never before been systematically recorded in Texas. He's actively involved in the search for rare and possibly lost firefly species, work that contributes to a growing understanding of firefly conservation priorities in North America. He collaborates regularly with organizations such as the International Union for Conservation of Nature, Firefly Specialist Group, Xerces Society, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, the Nature Conservancy, Master Naturalists, land trusts, state and local agencies, and private landowners. Ben studied biology at Texas State University and is a Texas Certified Master Naturalist. He's a sixth-generation Texan. He has spent much of his life exploring Texas ecosystems and working to conserve the state's unique and often overlooked biodiversity.
Cool.
All right, thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, well, thank you all for having me, and thank you for asking to have me come talk. I do a lot with the Master Naturalists, and so it's an honor to be a part of y'all's class today, and so we're gonna have some fun tonight, and we'll talk about fireflies. How's that sound? Great. Awesome. Good. Cool. Well, I am recording it, so save the dirty jokes for after the recording. But thanks for the introductions. My name is Ben Pfeiffer. I am a Texas Master Naturalist as well. I'm the Lindheimer chapter in New Braunfels and graduated 2016. So been involved for quite a long time. I started Firefly conservation and research back in 2009, and we didn't officially become kind of an organization until about 2014 or so. So I've been doing this for some time. I absolutely love it. It has become a passion of mine. It's not my main job, but it is something that I do regularly. I do about 18 talks a year, and I travel for conferences and do a lot of different things throughout the state. So it's kind of fun. Okay, so just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you've got a phone, just put it on silent. It's just helpful in case it rings. And then if you've got any questions during the presentation, I know we're going to have some people from Zoom that might ask some questions. So we're going to save the Zoom questions till the end, but you guys, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and then we'll try to answer it actually during the presentation. So this isn't a learning environment, so you know, if you've got something that's just burning that you want to know, just raise your big hand. Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started and talk about fireflies tonight. My hope is by the end of this presentation, you're going to have a much better understanding on the ecology that occurs with fireflies, and then also have a better ability in order to identify them come firefly season this year. So, what are fireflies? All right, it's not working. Okay, no, try. Yeah, there we go. Okay, all right, great, thank you. Okay, so what are fireflies? Fireflies are beetles, and they belong to what's called the family Lampyridae. They belong to a very diverse group of species, and they all are beetles in the order Coleoptera, and there's about 400,000 species worldwide. You might know fireflies by many names, depending upon where you grew up. You might know them as lightning bugs, or fireflies, or that glowy thing over there. A lot of times it's kind of where you're born. So if you're in the deep south, lightning bugs. If you're up north, fireflies. But in Texas, we can call them whatever we want. All fireflies belong to the family Lampyridae, and they all have very shared characteristics. As juveniles and as adults, they bioluminesce, which is pretty awesome. And this is a feature that distinguishes it between other different beetle species. They have a pronotum, also called a head shield. So throughout the presentation tonight, I might refer to a head shield or a pronotum. And this is what I mean right here. Why this is distinctive is that there's sometimes like a black spot here that occurs. And with firefly researchers, sometimes we look at that and that will kind of help us to ID in terms of different types of species. So we're looking at a certain morphological feature there. Now, all fireflies have relatively soft, elongated bodies. Sometimes we call these squishy beetles. And the reason we call them that is because if you've ever been a child and you took a firefly and you smashed it in your hand, that gooey, glowy stuff kind of runs out. So they're kind of this squishy beetle category. They are all about 5 to 20 millimeters long. So to put that in context, 5 millimeters long is about the size of a grain of rice. And then 20 millimeters long is about an inch. And so fireflies here in Texas can get up to about 25, even 30 millimeters at the far end of the range. Now, if you're down in South America, for example, like in Argentina or Ecuador, some fireflies down there can get up to 3 inches. So if you imagine hiking around in the jungle at night, a 3-inch long firefly lands in your head, it's kind of terrifying, right? Yeah, I wouldn't want it either. This is a little bit of the firefly anatomy. Why this is helpful is that you may be going out into nature and trying to identify bugs on your own, whether it's through iNaturalist or other reporting methods. And there's a lot of other beetles and insects that look like fireflies. So the reason why is because fireflies are poisonous, and a lot of other species will try to mimic the coloration of a firefly. Now, if you have a good insight in terms of like how their structure is, then that's going to be helpful in terms of determining whether it's a firefly or just some other beetle species. Yeah?
They're poisonous to what? Other animals?
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into what they're poisonous to. Yeah, in just a second. But let me just point out some like just major features to just kind of keep in mind. We've got the head shield here. In between that's called a scutellum. It's a hard bony plate. They have two what are called elytra, which are basically that protect their flight wings. And 2 eyes and 11 antenna segments. 6 legs. So if you see anything that's got more than 6 legs, it is not a firefly. On the elytra here, we have something called an elytral margin, and this yellow kind of coloration here is helpful because some species don't have that coloration there. Some could be completely all black. So just these little things kind of add up to help us identify what a firefly is. Now, this is a female firefly and a male firefly. You might be able to tell some differences automatically. If you're a female, it looks like you have 1 light organ, and if you're a male, you have 2 light organs. Does anybody know why that is?
Yeah. Males use the light organ to attract the females?
Yes, that's true. That's true. But why would a male just have more light organs than a female? Yeah.
She wants to have eggs, space for eggs.
Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah.
I was gonna say the same.
Same. Okay. All right. That's not. It's getting there. She needs to conserve her energy in order to lay eggs. And so as she mates with a male, her abdomen is going to get larger and larger and larger. And so in some ways space, but she doesn't need to flash as bright as a male. Males are interested in flashing to females, and they want to be bright, and so 2 light organs kind of makes sense. Whereas females, all energy is kind of devoted to as many eggs as possible. Now this is the firefly life cycle. Most people think that fireflies as adults live, that's usually the form that they see. But the reality is that fireflies as adults only live for about 3 to 4 weeks. So not very long. They spend most of their life in the larval state right here, about 1 to 2 years. Now off to the far right here is an example of a firefly larva. It kind of looks like a prehistoric kind of like these hard bony plates here, and it crawls along the ground. Up to the left is an example of a pupa. And curious thing about pupas for fireflies is where they live oftentimes indicates what they look like. So if you live in the leaves, you're going to look like a leaf. If you live and you pupate in the trees, you're going to be skinny and narrow, so you can fit in between pieces of bark. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, off to your far right is a picture of a larva, and it just hatched from an egg. Now you'll notice in the end of its tail there, it looks like it's kind of like a lighted region. So this goes back to those shared characteristics I talked about earlier, that as juveniles and as adults, they bioluminesce. Firefly habitat. So fireflies love like warm, humid areas and forests, fields, marshes. Riparian corridors are their primary place that they live. And a riparian corridor is the interface between the land and the water, that like narrow strip of vegetation that occurs there. And it occupies about 1% of all land types. So it's like one of the rarest types of land that we have, and it's the primary home of most fireflies. So when we talk about firefly conservation, we're oftentimes focused on an interest in that specific piece of land right there. So fireflies occur all over the place in a lot of different habitats. They primarily like humid, kind of moist areas, anywhere there's a lot of dampness, but some occur in drier areas and more xeric areas. In Texas here, we have fireflies that occur in some of the cedar breaks. And so the reason for that is the leaf litter that comes off a cedar tree is very small. And so if you're a burrowing female, or a piece of larva, and you need to burrow into the ground, into the soil, it's very easy to get in between those little pieces of cedar. So fireflies depend on cedar trees in Texas. So they just don't soak up all the water. So yes.
The picture before that larva, is that about the same size as what we see a firefly?
Oh, that's a great question. So she asked if the larva here is about the same size as an adult firefly. A lot of times the larva is smaller. And then, you know, when they pupate, really that's a reorganization of body parts, essentially. And so it's a good way to kind of think about it. And so, yeah, some larvae can get pretty big, but mostly they're a lot of times smaller than the adults.
And are they out and about? Like,
Yep.
you would see them around?
Yeah, they're gonna, it depends on the genus and where they're gonna live. Some live in the soil and burrow into the soil and they pupate in the soil. Others will live in the trees, and some are in